welcome to the channel. I have another unboxing for you guys today. Another printer for me to assemble and review, courtesy of Gearbest. In this box should be the Tronxy X5S, which will be a CoreXY style 3D printer. But let's go over more of the details as we do the unboxing. So let's pull in here for a closer look and see what's inside the box. Okay. So that doesn't get in our way. This will be my first CoreXY 3D printer to play around with. So we got a wiring diagram right off the top, in the top of our packaging. We've got our plastic blue insert for our aluminum frame. I believe that's what that is. Some sample filament. We won't be using that. Teflon tube. Some of our wiring for our stepper motors. Wiring. So 2 end stops with the wiring. Our power supply with a nice acrylic box and an on and off switch and a 20 amp fuse. And this will plug in, I'm assuming this is already pre-wired. It's already screwed together. So that's a nice feature. Power cable, a little handy bag of tools, LCD cables, thumb drive with a micro SD card, which should contain all of our assembly files and whatnot. USB cable, piece of acrylic, I'm not sure what that goes for yet. Our heated build plate. This thing is massive. It'll be the same size as the build plate on the Tronxy X5S, which is 330 by 330. The build plate comes with a cable chain already attached, and this is a injection molded cable chain, really nice. Lots of extra wiring. So this is a massive build plate. And we've got that same material we had with the X3S, that plastic composite, looks like a fiberglass composite, comes with the build plate. Again, this is 330 by 330, this build plate. A couple of more acrylic plates. I believe this one is for our LCD display, our control panel. I'm not sure what this one is for. Okay, let's get to the next layer. Okay, so we've got, in this bag here, we have some zip ties, some wire wrap for cable management, and our GT2 6mm belt So no need to worry about stretch there. These look like bearings for our bed assembly. They're pretty greasy, sealed up in here. Let's get one out. These are like linear bearings. Two bearings to fix our threaded rods to the top of our printer. Okay, so this is our hot end assembly. It also comes with a nice cable chain, all injection molded. Comes with the X end stop built in, already assembled. It also has a nice shroud with a like a powder coated, textured powder coated surface on it, and it has filament cooling. Unlike the X3 series and the X1, it has filament cooling out of the box. This is a big step up from the X3 and the X3S, with the cable chain and everything included. So that's a nice feature. We have some more acrylic. Here, various pieces. We'll figure out where those go when we get into the build. We have our LCD here. We have some brass fittings, and we have some rubber feet for the base of the printer. And we have a bunch of screws and washers and bolts. They're all different bags inside of there, mixed lot. Okay. So we have our two Z-axis stepper motors. You see they have this acrylic plate on them. Unfortunately, we have some issues here right off the bat. Here are some of the grub screws for the coupler sitting in the bottom of the box loose, and this acrylic plate is broken. So I don't know how this will impact assembly of the printer, but it does impact my overall first impressions. This acrylic plate came broken, so we'll have to deal with that when we get to it. We have our extruder assembly already assembled. And we have our X-axis, or actually we have our two stepper motors that are going to control our CoreXY functionality, since there's no real X or Y axis specific motor on this printer. A cover plate for our electronics with a cooling fan. It's labeled Tronxy XY V2. That's what the branding on the board is. Okay. We have four other brackets here with various wheels and bearings on them. They will somehow relate to our stepper motors for our CoreXY functionality at the top of the printer. So until I get into assembly, I'm really not 100% sure on their full functionality. And we have a bunch of 2040 extrusions. well as a aluminum plate for raising the bed. Should be 2 aluminum plates. So there's 4 pieces of 2040, 2 powder coated aluminum plates, and 2 more powder coated aluminum plates. We have our smooth rods and our 2 threaded lead screws for our Z-axis. And a bunch of 2020. So that's pretty much everything that's in the box. So now that we've done the unboxing, let's dive right into the build. Okay, now that we're through with the unboxing, I've moved everything here to my study, and let's start the build. Okay, the next step is our rubber feet. Still don't know how this is going to be very secure. Let's just finish the printer and see how it works out. Now on to step 3. This is where we'll need our extruder assembly. And I'm going to come in for a close-up here. So the extruder assembly, it comes all pre-assembled in the box, even with the limit switch here. What I did do is I did remove the filament fan and the shroud, and I designed my own. I'll put this up on Thingiverse, but it fits really nice, and it should offer more adequate cooling all the way around, and it's pointed down at the filament, not at the nozzle. Again, you can find that on Thingiverse. And it still keeps the and you still have the original look. It looks as if it belongs. It doesn't look like I modified it or So once I straighten that up and tighten that up, it should be better. I'll pull it over to one side just to make sure that I have an even gap here before I tighten those up. That's one way for me to square it up with the frame. Okay, belt's in place. Z-axis motors. When I did the unboxing, I had one that was broken, as you can see here. So what I did, I wasn't really paying attention when I did the unboxing, but there's many designs online to replace that, but I just came up with my own. I have one installed already, but it wasn't necessary because I found in the box, actually, the printer came with a spare. So this was broken. This one was installed on the other motor, and I had a spare. So I didn't necessarily have to come up with what I did to replace this broken one. But I did anyways. I came up with something that's a little more rigid, and it's got a groove on it that fits in that channel. So it allows it to fall right into place where I need it. We already have one installed here. Tape measure. It should be fine. So I had a little accident. I broke this here. I came up with this little design here to go between the two pieces of acrylic that house the electronics, just to conceal everything better. First, we're gonna connect our cables to the board. We have to do it in this order, and then we'll slide our cables through here for our LCD. Put our board in on a slight angle because we have ridges here for our second piece of acrylic, and then you just in place like that. Then we can take these two pieces and put them together using our long screws. Okay, the assembly guy calls out for this bracket and this cable to be hooked up to the back side close to center, but I checked my wiring length and I'll be short wires going into this box if I followed that, and I also don't want to route wires all through the back. I prefer to come close to straight down here, follow the 2040 after I wrap this in wire wrap to go into the box and come down inside this post right here. So I wired it in the front like this. It still works just fine. Okay. One end stop comes pre-installed on the Hotend. In my kit anyways it did. And the other two go on this one bracket right here together. Installed right here. This hits this and this hits this. So something like that. As you can see here, we got a lot of space still between our Z-axis end stop and our bed, and that's what this little hole here is for. Put a screw through there, and the printer does allow fine adjustments on the right there. Tighten that down. There you go. Depending on where I have it located, I'll probably put it right there. I'm going to move this to the front. It's right there in the front. I don't have to reach around back. I can take the spool over there, run it right up. If I have any issues with the spool, it's right there in the front. I can deal with it easier than if I had to go reach around back, especially if it's up here on my shelf. So I've disassembled the acrylic housing for the power supply. I've mounted a MOSFET right here. I've used two of the small spacers that you would typically put behind the board, the control board. Since I have this little housing here, I don't need them, so I repurposed two of them. And I have this spaced out from the frame and mounted in place. I'm going to take, since what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut my wiring for my heated bed. Just get this around here. So I'm going to cut my wiring to my heated bed so it's long enough that I just maybe an extra inch or two get it into here, and then I could use the leftovers to run power from the power supply, and I'm hopefully having enough left over to run from the front connectors here over to my heated bed power on the board, and then that'll have my MOSFET installed. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. The MOSFET is clearly labeled. I've got my heated bed power here and my power from my board here. My heated bed, it has the positive and a negative. I'm only going to need about that much wire. That's So I'm going to cut these here. Now I can take some of this wire and I can route power from the power supply directly to the MOSFET. There's power to my MOSFET and then to the bed itself, and then I just need to wire this to the board. There are two sets of connectors here. I only need to use one of them, and I'll be using the lower set here. And I have lots of wire to spare. Left over from the bed itself. Okay, all our cable management is done. All our wiring is done. The printer is on. So we'll take a look at my cable management here. If you take a look back here, we'll see how clean this looks. I got that X motor over there. You can see the cable going across in the back with the wire wrap. It wasn't long enough to tuck it up in the frame. I tried that and I couldn't reach the box after doing that, so I had to just run it straight across and merge up with the other one. It still doesn't look too bad back there all in black like that. I wish I could have hidden it in the frame, but it is what it is. Everything else is nice. Over here, let's check out what I did here. It's a little bit of roughnecking it, but so we got some cable wrap here. I got a zip tie here to make sure that doesn't pop out, and then basically all I did here is some black electrical tape all the way around to hide that on the inside of the frame. You have these nice and neat tucked in there. Extruder and Hotend. Go around here. I got a couple of zip ties here holding both of those to the frame here. I think I like the extruder here better. Everything's right here in the front where I can easily get at it. This fan here is quite loud. This one right here, that's what's making all that noise. Maybe there's something stuck in there, I'm not sure. We go to the side here where all our electronics are. If I had some black, I would have printed that in black, but it closely matches the blue stripes. I like the blue stripes, so I put them in. We get all our wiring here. I might redesign or design a second version of this that has a extension here to hide all the bulk of the wiring, because you can't tuck this all in because a lot of it's connected right here. So I might do a little extension on that there. But that's all nice and neat tucked in there together. I got a MOSFET here, a couple of standoffs. It's held on there pretty good. Powering the bed. All that I have left to do now is just level the bed and do a test print. We got our corking underneath. It won't create miracles by heating this thing up fast and to really high temperatures, but it will help it get to 60 degrees a little faster. It'll shave off 4 to 6 minutes there in that excruciating wait time. Okay, so let's okay, so I'm going to level the bed and get the printer set up for our first print. So before I do that, we'll heat the bed up to 60 degrees to make sure that
we get a proper level on the bed. Well, this jumps fast, so I go from 0 to 130 with just a little flick. So the adjustment on this, just like the X3S, is overly sensitive. So we'll time the bed heating up to see how long it takes to 60 with the corking on the back. I feel barely any heat coming through the corking. Lots of heat coming through the top. So we're at 17 minutes and we're still stuck at 56 degrees. So I'm not sure if we're going to make it to 60. Even with the corking on there, it's still taking an incredibly long time to reach temperature. So I'm not going to bother waiting till I get up to 60. We're going to go ahead and manually level the bed now. 57 should be good enough. And we're going to home the printer. And then I'm going to release the stepper motors. We'll disable the stepper motors. So I need to I might actually get rid of these screws in here. We are up to 59 degrees now, and it's been 21 minutes. Okay. Well, let's rehome this. First off, I want to now let's go and disable those steppers. And we'll start with this corner. I have a very thin piece of paper here, so I folded it over. And I'm going to adjust this corner until I'm catching, like I am right there. And then I'm going to move the Hotend over to the opposite corner. Adjust that till I'm catching. We'll go to the back. Be careful not to apply pressure to the bed. Since the steppers are disabled, you will move the bed. Now we'll go to the center. And we'll have to do a slight adjustment on all our corners until our center gets in. The bed might have a little bit of a bow in it. Okay. So, might still be a little too tight. Just a very mild adjustment here, not much. Just barely moving the wing nuts. All an equal amount on all four. Okay, there we go. So we're going to check this front corner again, just since we had to do an adjustment there. We're loose here now, and that might have to do with the fact that this piece of whatever this material is, it's not two-sided tape down. Let's go to the center front here. So but we want to be good in our very center, so these outer corners we'll have to work on whether that requires us getting a piece of glass for this. I'm not sure how well this material here holds up in the heat. It looks like a piece of fiberglass laminate. Okay, so let's home the printer. That will lock all our steppers. And let's set up for something to print. We'll put that through time lapse. So this completes my unboxing and build of the CoreXY X5S 3D printer. It was a little more time consuming to build the X5S than it was the X3S, but on the flip side of that, it was a lot more fun building this printer than the X3S. It went together a lot easier. I didn't have any issues with my threaded rods. And it's my first CoreXY 3D printer that I've gotten a chance to work with, and it was really fun to put it together, and I really like the setup. I like the cube design of the printer, the fact that it comes with all the cable chains and pretty much everything I need out of the box for the assembly was really nice. It comes with filament cooling out of the box, unlike the X3S. It is a little bit pricier than the X3S, but I believe it's worth it, given that it has better components than the X3S, and the end result is a lot better. The only upgrades I've done to the printer, and that fan can be a little bit annoying, right there. We'll shut this off. The only upgrades I've done to the printer, I designed a shroud for the electronics housing here,
just to conceal all the wiring and just to make it look a little cleaner. This will be the final version I have in my hands. I've added this extension right here that hides all the wiring coming into the box, and there is a little rail here for tying all your wires down so they can't be yanked out. So this is the final version of that. That can be found on Thingiverse. And I did change out the filament shroud that was here. The one that was here was just your basic slot design, blowing down on, actually blowing over across the nozzle and the hot end. It evenly distributes cooling around the nozzle and down onto the printed surface instead of onto the nozzle itself. So those are the only two upgrades I've done to the printer. They can be found on Thingiverse. I'll put links in the descriptions. The printer itself, I like the print quality that's coming out of the printer itself. It's hard to see with this dark brown here, but the detail is really nice. I don't have any artifacting at all here, no wavy lines, no zits from starts and stops of the print. It turned out really, really nice. Again, it's hard to see that with given the how dark this filament is. But that print turned out really nice. And then the little dragon I did here, he turned out really well as well. Just very, very few imperfections in this model. The details came out nice, the claws, the head. They're the only two prints I've done on the printer so far, but this is really just an unboxing and assembly, and just to get an idea how well it prints. But I find it prints very well. I have no binding issues with the threaded rods on this printer like I do with the X3S. I really like this setup up top, the CoreXY setup, and I find that I don't know if it's just me, but I find my prints are slightly better with this setup than on my Cartesian style setups for some reason. So maybe it has to do with the bed not moving, being in a fixed position. The only real negative I have about this printer is the time it takes to heat this heated bed up. It's closer to the 20-minute mark. You have a 24-volt heated plate and a 12-volt power supply. And the heated plate is huge. It's 330 by 330, and that's the entire heated plate. It is huge, and it takes a long time to heat up. Given the fact that it has 12 volts running into it and it is a 24-volt bed. There are solutions for that, but that will require a further cash investment. For now, I'll live with it. I have a MOSFET on here just to make sure that my board, I don't pull too much current from my board. My bed is separately powered through the MOSFET, a 30 amp MOSFET I have in the back. And again, that is just something extra I put on the printer. I really like the look of the printer. I do. It's a nice printer. I did deviate a little bit from the build instructions. I chose to put the rudimentary filament spool holder at the front, so I have easy access to it, as well as my extruder here in the front, so I have easy access to it. I don't have to reach around the back. I also chose for my wiring for my hot end and my cable chain to install that at the front as well, just because in the back, if I install it in the back, I found that I just didn't have quite enough length wiring wise to get into to wire to my board here and make everything look nice. Wires were going to stick out there. I was going to have to come across on angles I didn't want to come across on, so I wired it up to the front here, and I got everything hidden in behind and just down the back of this post to give it a clean look. So overall, I'm happy with the look of the printer. The price point is pretty good, I think, for this printer for what it is and the size. There's a lot of support online for it. There's a lot of modifications and upgrades you can get on Thingiverse, from how the CoreXY setup up top is done, to getting the most out of your print height on the bed. I won't go into any of that. Those options are out there though. But I like this printer, I really do. It is a massive printer, so I will say that. It takes up a lot of space on the workbench, more so than you would think. The dimensions on the printer, just for everybody out there, the dimensions on the printer, you're going to need 500 from this edge to right out to your electronics box. You're going to need 580 millimeters, and from your power supply in the back right to the front, you're going to need 600 millimeters, and your height on this printer is going to be 650 millimeters. So keep that in mind. It doesn't have the height requirement of the CR10, even though it has the same build volume height-wise, but it does take up a lot of space on the workbench. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. I hope you all find the video informative and you enjoyed it. I know I enjoyed putting the printer together. And stay tuned for my next video, which will be an epic print on the X5S, and I'll see you guys then.